something to keep you from tackling that difficult task. Avoiding these tasks isn't just a time management issue, but it's an issue of self-regulation and self-management. At the core of this procrastination can be saboteur in the back of our heads, amplifying our fears. Fears of failure, criticisms, or even success. Staying in your comfort zone might keep you safe, but it cannot make you better. The world is changing every minute, and if you don't start changing yourself, you will not be able to catch up with everyone else. Therefore, the secret that will ruin your life is your comfort. Let's dig deeper into this topic, shall we? Everyone has one comfort zone, and we like being in it. Usually it looks something like this: going to school, or a job where we do what it requires us to get by, but not necessarily more than that. Getting quick dopamine fixes throughout the day on your phones or other devices. Spending weekends hanging out with the same people we have always socialized with. Holding onto the same beliefs we had for years and failing to consider different opinions. Basically, it means taking the path, at least resistant. Life becomes a predictable routine with no real challenges, and we find ourselves stagnating. And it's easy to understand why the majority of people stay here for most of their lives. As the name implies, it's comfortable here since we're not pushing ourselves. At the first glance, there seems to be nothing wrong with that. Why would we voluntarily put ourselves in the position of struggle? But if we only live our lives in the comfort zone, we might be unknowingly doing ourselves an injustice. While our comfort zone is indeed comfortable, it also had one big downside. People who are stuck here for too long don't just stagnate, but they often regress backwards as well. When you're doing the same things the same way over and over again, the comfort zone itself begins to shrink. The things that you were comfortable with before are now less comfortable. Let me give you an example. Someone who is socially anxious and is afraid of social interaction usually doesn't like the idea of meeting new people, experiencing that is outside of their comfort zone. So instead, they prefer to spend their time alone, or if they do socialize, it's with the people they already know very well. That is fine, but let's say this person starts spending less time with their current friends and even more time alone. Slowly, their current comfort zone will become smaller because they don't confront their fear. The fear becomes even bigger. And even the idea of calling up their current friend group might become more difficult. So you can see how paradoxically giving into the current comfort can lead to future discomfort. When the muscle isn't used for a longer period of time, it atrophies and gets smaller because there's no reason for it to stay big. The same happens when we don't challenge ourselves. We become less capable of handling the obstacles that life throws at us. And that is the first reason why I try to do something difficult every day. I don't want to stagnate, and I don't want the things that I'm comfortable with right now become uncomfortable in the future. However, when we push ourselves and do something that is a little bit more difficult and challenging for us, we leave the comfort zone, and then we enter the growth zone. This is where we struggle, and we might feel like a fool, but this is exactly where all real progress is made. And you have probably noticed this yourself. When working out at the gym, you don't improve if you simply lift the same weight every day. When learning a new language, you are not advancing if you only practice what you have already known. To improve and see the progress, you have to leave the comfort zone and increase the challenge. That might mean increasing the weights on your lifts or reading something new and trying to recall the information without help. Of course, it will be uncomfortable, you will struggle, and of course, you will probably feel like an idiot. But doing anything worthwhile requires you to go through this, because the things that have the biggest payoff always feel difficult in the moment. There is no improvement without challenge. Of course, the comfort zone isn't just one single zone. For everything, we have multiple zones. You might be pushing yourself in some of them, stagnating in others, and maybe deteriorating in some. For example, you could be regressing backwards with your social skills, stagnating with your work, but pushing yourself to the limit at the gym. It's up to each of us to identify which zone needs more work. And it's completely fine to stop progressing in some areas. If you are happy with where you are, there's no need to push yourself at everything you do. But if you are not happy with where you are, there are a few ways to go from comfort to growth. You probably already have a certain area in mind where you are kind of stuck and want to improve. There are 3 ways to go about it. The first way is by doing it more constantly. The second way is by doing it more intensely. And the third way is by doing it for longer periods of time. All 3 of them will increase the difficulty of whatever you want to improve. I will quickly go over them using running as an example. Firstly, doing it more constantly simply means that instead of running 3 days a week, you try to raise it to 4 days. Since you are doing it more often, it becomes more challenging. But this also helps consolidate the behavior and makes it more likely for you to do it in the future as well. Secondly, doing it more intensely means that you do a more potent version of what you usually do. This might mean trying something new like running sprints or running up a hill. Basically, instead of running at 60% of your capacity, you bumped it into 90%. This also adds variety and actually makes the activity more fun because you are not doing it the same things every single time anymore. Thirdly, doing it for a longer period simply means spending more time on it. So if you usually go for a 20 minutes run, you now try to do it for 30 minutes instead. Basically, you push yourself and persevere through it just a little longer than you normally do. And all of this can be applied to pretty much any activities. Learning a new language? Do it daily, maybe even multiple times a day if possible. Increase the time you spend learning by 15 minutes and use active recall along with spaced repetition to remember more. Trying to improve your social skills? Constantly try put yourself into environments where social situation might occur. Try saying an extra sentence each time you find yourself in one, and always be the one who invites people out. All of those 3 methods are a good way to move from comfort to growth zone. But depending on the area you are working on, some of them are more useful. For example, if you are trying to learn an instrument, you will find it actually better to play every day for 10 minutes than it is to play once a week for 1 intense hour. Also, you shouldn't necessarily use all 3 methods at the same time or too much, too fast. Instead, you want to pick one, and once you're ready, expand from there. Now, as I mentioned, most of the gains in life come from short-term discomfort. With that being said, if something is difficult, it doesn't automatically mean it's good. The area you want to be uncomfortable in has to have some sort of a long-term benefit. Studying something makes you feel stupid in the moment, but because you absorb the concepts, you get smarter over time. Eating healthily and resisting sugar might be difficult, but it is what allows you to get in and stay in good physical condition. Saving money instead of splurging on a new pair of shoes might be hard, but if invested properly and given enough time, it will make you wealthier. So these types of areas are where you should actually push yourself. The ones with short-term pain but long-term gain. And that is the second reason why I try to do something difficult every day. Even though it might feel uncomfortable in the moment, I know that my behavior will pay off in the future. And only by entering the growth zone and pushing myself, I am able to reap those positive long-term benefits. So why don't more of us leave the comfort zone if it's clearly beneficial to do so? Well, that's because there is actually a third zone. If someone were to push themselves too far out of their comfort zone, they just might pass the growth zone and go straight into the danger zone. This is why we feel uncomfortable in the first place. There is such a thing as pushing yourself too far. After all, if you exercise too much, you might suffer an injury. If you work too much, you might experience burnout. And discomfort is actually a very useful alarm, preventing you from getting hurt, as such an injury would likely set you further back. So it makes perfect sense why most people stay in their comfort zone. They want to avoid the danger zone at all costs. But unfortunately, a lot of people, when they are looking to make a positive change in their life, they go straight into the danger zone. One of my friends is like this. A few years ago, he wanted to improve his physical health with newfound motivation. He joined the gym and made a commitment to lift weights 5 times a week. He also vowed to start a strict diet where he would reduce his caloric intake and cut out all sugar. But within 1 month, he was back to the routinely sitting on the couch watching Netflix and stuffing himself with cookies. Like most people, he took on too much, too quickly, and this is a very common occurrence when trying to leave the comfort zone. However, failing to stick to a plan isn't even the worst part. The bigger issue people have is that because they fail at keeping up with their high expectations, they also feed their beliefs that it's entirely impossible for them to change and grow. Because of that, they don't even bother trying to improve themselves in the future. In their mind, they are failures who should not try again. So what is the solution here? How do we make getting out of a comfort zone easier? How can we operate in the growth zone, but at the same time avoid the danger zone? A far more effective method is to go about it gradually in small and manageable increments. If someone has been completely sedentary and wants to begin exercising, it doesn't make sense to start doing intense weightlifting for 2 hours 5 times a week. Their odds of success are far higher if they just begin with something they are actually capable of doing. Like having a light gym session 3 times a week for 45 minutes, and only once they are able to maintain that, push further. Remember, if you aren't able to commit to a small change, how can you expect to commit to a big one? Another benefit that comes from doing it gradually is that you create a positive feedback loop. Since you're actually able to do what you set out to do, you give yourself evidence that you can indeed improve and change. And this proof of progress, even if it's small, it makes you feel really good and more confident in your abilities. This in turn fuels persistence to push through more challenges further down the path. Basically, success starts to feed on itself, and you keep pushing further out of the comfort zone. Also, when you get a positive feedback loop going on in one area, it tends to slowly spread into other areas. This is the third reason why I try to do something difficult every single day. Whenever I am able to do something outside of my comfort zone, even if it's just by a little, it kickstarts this positive feedback loop. And it's like failing dominoes. Success fuels further success. This being said, you shouldn't push past your comfort zone all the time. When I say I do something difficult every day, don't mistake this for me trying to expand in every single area on a daily basis. I might be pushing myself in 1 or 2 areas, but during that time, I return back to the comfort zone in other areas. This allows me to maintain my current zone, but also get efficient rest and recovery. Without rest, I would probably burn out. Over time, you want to grow, but you also want to give your comfort zone time to catch up to the new demands. First, you expand your comfort zone by doing something difficult, but you don't keep expanding indefinitely. Instead, when it starts feeling too overwhelming, you lower the difficulty and retract only slightly above your comfort zone was before. This allows you to get used to the new layer and you let your comfort zone catch up to your new demands, which prevents you from burning out. Only once you have adapted to the new demands and you feel like you are ready to improve again, you push past your new comfort zone. Just like before, once you feel like it's too hard, you retract slightly above the previous point. Essentially, you are constantly challenging yourself, but also coming back for air when it gets too difficult. And you can repeat this process until you reach the level you want to be at. Another way to look at it is to think about the comfort zone as a place of temporary refuge, but not a permanent residence. As you can see, the point of this video isn't to overexert yourself until you can't go any further. I'm trying to convince you to find a worthy challenge in hopes of bettering yourself at things you care about. Unfortunately, a lot of people give up at the first taste of failure or discomfort, and they never see what they are actually capable of. If you never push yourself to the limit, how can you know where your limit is? Only those who consistently push past their comfort zones and embrace the struggle are able to reach their true potential. So I encourage you to do something today that you find slightly more challenging. Maybe read a few more pages, do a few more extra reps at the gym, learn some new words, try to do something difficult today. You will eventually become better than yesterday. Thank you for watching PeakYou channel. Hit the subscribe button for more interesting topics. If you enjoy this video, share it to your beloved ones. You are helping yourself and helping them to become a better person. See you in our next video. Goodbye.